Welcome to Canada Conversations, part of Delaware Debates 2016, produced by Delaware Public Media in collaboration with the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communication with support from AARP. I'm Delaware Public Media News Director Tom Byrne. This conversation, taped on the campus of Delaware State University, focuses on the race for U.S. House, and we are joined by Democrat Lisa Blunt-Rochester. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, first, talk to us a little bit about your background and what you feel like separates you from the other candidates running and makes you better suited for the job.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I would love to share is that I'm a born advocate and problem solver. Started off in a congressional office years ago as an intern and actually became a caseworker, helping people with Social Security disability, IRS, people who became homeless. And in that job, you really get to see some of the pressing issues that individuals in our state and across our country face. I think what probably distinguishes me is that I've had over 25 years actual experience, everything from running major organizations, such as serving as our state's Department of Labor Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, and multi-million-dollar budget with hundreds of employees, to working grassroots on the ground as the CEO of the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League in the city of Wilmington, where we tackled issues and really became part of, we started the Hope Commission and we did things that were right on the ground, grassroots. And so one is experience, also traveled to many different countries around the world and had experiences there. And I think in this time, we need people that have a breadth of experience and raise kids in the Delaware public schools. So I know what it's like to have to deal with our education system. They graduated from college, and like 40 million other Americans are now saddled with student loan debt. So college affordability is very important to me. So number one is experience. Number two, a proven track record of bringing people together that sometimes typically wouldn't even talk to each other, whether it was being commissioned by our governor to investigate the state police for racial discrimination and bringing together people in an effort to have a plan forward, or on a host of other issues, a track record of bringing people together. And I think that's also what's necessary in DC. And last, I'm probably one of the most positive, passionate people you will ever meet and engaged in public service. It is my life's passion.
This is a unique race because none of the candidates in this field, yourself included, have ever been elected to statewide office, and that's often seen as a prerequisite for a job like this. What would you say to a voter who's worried about your lack of experience in that area and thus ability maybe to go to Washington and get things done? Yeah,
I think, it's interesting because actually out of the candidates, I've never run for office either. Right. And I think one of the things that we stress, and I stress when I talk about this, is that our times demand something different, I think. I think our times demand something fresh and new, and if we want different, we have to do different, and if we want more, we have to do more. So for me, this is me doing more. And I think even if you look at the founding of our country, it wasn't a prerequisite that somebody be elected before they run. As a matter of fact, one of the things I love about the House of Representatives is that it's the people's house. And so I think people like myself, people that are watching this program, like I said, if we want more, we have to do more. So I don't think that's necessarily a prerequisite, and it might even be a plus nowadays. And I think the other thing that I can say is that having served as our Secretary of Labor and our State Personnel Director, I can recognize what it's like for many of the businesses that are struggling out there, trying to create a great workforce and make sure our infrastructure is together. And so it really, to me, is important that people have real experience that go to Washington.
You mentioned earlier your ability to bring people together and do things. Obviously, that has not been happening a lot in Washington these days. Getting things done in recent years has been very, very difficult. If elected, what do you bring to that effort to bridge the partisan divide and get things accomplished in Washington?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we face is the fact that people kind of put a label on somebody and then they judge from there. I think one of the fortunate things that I've been able to do working in Delaware is to work across party lines, to work across generational lines, racial lines, because I just really believe that we're all in this together. There's a quote that it's Dr. King, I guess, and it says, we may have come over on different boats. We may have come over on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. And I kind of feel that's where we are today. All of us are facing the challenges of the economy. All of us are facing the challenges of our school system. The whole issue of trust in government is something that, as I'm talking to people up and down the state, these are the things that I hear about. And then gun violence and our relationships, you know, in terms of criminal justice reform. These are things that all of us are impacted by.
You mentioned the economy. There obviously are a lot of concerns about creating and retaining jobs here in Delaware. It's been front and center, particularly this year in the wake of the Dow-DuPont merger. If elected, how do you help boost economic growth, raise wages, create jobs in the first state and elsewhere in this country?
I think that it's a combination of things. Number one is to create an environment that is also friendly and supportive, particularly of small businesses, because they are the majority of our businesses in our state. So we want to make sure that we bring federal funds and opportunities here for those businesses, and that includes how our tax system is situated. I think it's also about our education system. Workforce development is also very important. Not everybody's going to want to go to college, so do we have job training programs that are preparing people for the jobs of the future and the jobs that we have here so that we retain them? And then I think another big issue is our infrastructure. We have a lot of crumbling roads, bridges, and that infrastructure is really the lifeblood of our state and our country as well, and it creates jobs. So those are jobs that can't go to another country if somebody's building a bridge right here. So to me, it's a combination of education, the environment we create for businesses, our education system, and also building our infrastructure again.
I want to talk a little bit about this summer, which has been a difficult one in many communities across this country. A number of high-profile incidents of police shooting individuals and shooting police officers. That's raised a lot of tensions between law enforcement and the communities in which they serve. If elected, how can you address this issue and help to rebuild some of this trust that seems to have been lost?
Yeah, I think trust is one of the key words that you mentioned. You asked earlier about what also distinguishes me. And I can say one of the things that distinguishes me is that of all the candidates, I'm probably the only mother that had to jump out of her bed at 11 o'clock and go to Edgemoor Community Center when her son was stopped by the police. It gets me emotional thinking about it because it is something that we live with every day. And so part of it, having had that experience, but also having had the experience of working with the Delaware State Police in particular on issues like building strong communities in Sussex County and Kent County, it brings a unique perspective. When I had to investigate the state police, what we did was we brought experts from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, who the police respected, along with Clinton administration folks who focused on EEO and affirmative action, who were trusted by the Urban League, and they were trusted by La Raza and the NAACP. And we said, let's come together and figure out a path forward. But that took a lot of first finding common ground. Like, what do we all really believe in? What do we say, and how do we really act upon it? And it took a lot of work and trust building. And I do think that that's a part of it. I go also back to the economic opportunity, which is one of probably the pillar of my campaign, is that, when people have purpose and they have a reason to live and actually have economic opportunities, sometimes we don't end up in the prison system. We don't end up maybe in health and social services, where I served as deputy secretary and saw some of the challenges there. To me, economic opportunity and living your purpose is a big piece of it as well. So I think it's one of those important conversations, even about race, that we just don't really talk about. We talk past each other sometimes. And so for me, it starts with finding out where we have common ground, because we do.
The other issue out there is the issue of terrorism, security threats today, both internationally and domestically. How can you, if elected, address that and kind of the difficulty of keeping America both safe and free at the same time.
Yeah. You know, I actually worked for a little bit. The year that I investigated the state police, I got an assignment in Jordan in the Middle East, and it was the same year 9/11 had happened, and it was after 9/11, and I was asked through USAID funding to advise the Minister of Labor on workforce issues. And living in the Middle East, it was a very life-changing experience. Again, back to the common ground piece, you know, I learned a lot even about Islam in that experience, and one-on-one with families who we just connected on so many other issues. They were complaining about the same things we were complaining. Oh, the education system stinks here, and how are we going to pay for this wedding? And there were those things that were common bonds between us. And for me, as somebody who studied international relations in school, you know, I do believe there is an opportunity for peace. I do believe that. And I think part of it starts with people like me, us, stepping forward and saying, I want to be a part of a positive solution. I don't think it's about building walls. I don't think it's about separating us. I think it's about finding those opportunities, just like I said, here in our own country, where we can come together. And economic opportunity helps. I think that helps. But I think it starts with the basic belief that we are in this together.
You alluded to it a little bit there in that answer. Immigration kind of flows through a lot of these issues that we've talked about, both undocumented immigrants in the U.S. and America opening its doors to immigrants and refugees from war-torn countries like Syria. Where do you stand on the immigration issue?
Yeah. In terms of immigration, I believe there should be a path to citizenship. I believe our country was actually built on immigrants and people, some who came on purpose and some who didn't, as we know. And I definitely believe that we should have that path to citizenship. I think that it's unfortunate that some of the rhetoric out there is just divisive and for political purposes, as opposed to the practicalities of how you run a country, even how you live in a global society. The reality is we benefit from people who come into our country, from their brains, from their wisdom, from their experiences as well. I do think you do want to balance that with being safe. I think there's such a thing as being smart about your safety as well, and it's the same true with you as an individual. So, I definitely support a path to citizenship for immigrants.
And we've talked a couple times about education. I want to ask specifically about that. One thing that President Obama has proposed is making 2 years of community college free for all Americans. Where do you stand on that issue? And more broadly, the federal government's role in education from pre-K all the way through college?
Yeah. I think start with the federal government's role. I definitely believe that there is a role. Even looking at the changes that have shifted from No Child Left Behind to Every Student Succeeds Act, I think it's going to be a challenge to really, as money is giving to this at the state level, the federal level kind of shrinks somewhat. So it's more of a role of watching, making sure that we're monitoring, making sure that funds are going there, making sure that if there are discretionary funds, we receive them. But I also think it goes all the way back to not just pre-K, but even, before that, what kind of healthcare system do we have? I mean, we talked about the Affordable Care Act. Are kids coming to school ready to learn? Are they being basically not getting the resources because of the zip code that they live in? I don't think that's right. And so for me, everything from education funding to monitoring what happens to making sure that we have standards are important. On college affordability, that one is another personal one for me because I have 2 children who are still paying student loans. I'm still paying a parent loan. They graduated from college. My son is 30, and and my daughter's 27. And to me, whether it's 2 years free for community colleges, which I think our community colleges are one of our greatest resources, to the Pell Grants and not, limiting those, and also people having the ability to refinance those loans, because, again, that debt prohibits them from being contributing, citizens to our country. So I don't like to mention that, but shoot, my daughter's still living with me because she's paying for student loans, So we want to make sure that our young people actually are able to, they're doing the right things. They shouldn't be penalized for it.
All right. Lisa Blunt, Rochester Democratic Party candidate for U.S. House. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And you can find all of our candidate conversations online at delawarepublic.org and delawaredebates.org. Candidate conversations are taped at Delaware State University and are part of Delaware Debates 2016, produced by Delaware Public Media in collaboration with the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communication, with support from AARP. Thanks for watching.